Germany's Chancellor Olaf Scholz has unveiled a €200 billion plan to guard the German economy against the effects of soaring energy prices. The plan includes a cap on natural gas and electricity prices and will also scrap a proposed gas tax on consumers.
Ни газ не будем поставлять, ни нефть, ни уголь, ни топочный мазут, ничего не будем поставлять. Мы будем полностью выполнять наши контрактные обязательства. Но если кто-то попытается нам что-то навязать, то хочу отметить, те, кто нам что-то навязывает, не в том положении находятся сегодня, чтобы диктовать нам свою волю.
Russia has suspended all gas supplies to Germany through the Nord Stream 1 pipeline. State energy firm Gazprom says deliveries will be stopped for 3 days for maintenance work. However, there are doubts over whether supplies will resume on Saturday.
Have you ever wondered how the economic tensions between Germany and Russia are affecting the European Union? And do you know what Germany has to get through if it refuses subsidies offered by Russia? Over the past decade, a subsidy war has erupted between these two countries. As a result, the EU is being put under immense stress as it struggles to maintain its unity. Through an economic case study, in this video, we'll discuss how the EU is falling apart due to Germany's subsidy war. We'll also explore the current state of the conflict, its potential effects, and what the future holds. So buckle up as you prepare to learn more about one of the most defining issues of our day. Mega subsidy of $200 billion. The European Union is in the midst of an economic crisis, and Germany is at the center of it. The German government has announced a series of mega subsidies totaling $200 billion, and these subsidies are having a profound effect on the ongoing Russia-Europe economic war. This war is being fought over the issue of sanctions, and it's having a major impact on the European economy. The primary functions of the shield are to restrain the price of gas and electricity, lower gas taxes, and encourage investment in renewable energy sources in order to maintain artificially low energy prices. High inflation rate and economic breakdown of Germany. The announcement of the subsidy program comes as Germany is facing increasing pressure from Russia, both economically and politically. In recent months, Russia has been using its energy resources as a weapon by cutting off supplies to countries that it disagrees with politically. This has led to sharp increases in energy prices for those countries and has put them at a disadvantage compared to Russia. The possibility of a Russian natural gas supply interruption poses a serious threat to the German economy. Just over 25% of Germany's energy use is made up virtually entirely of imported gas. According to the Economy Ministry, as of the end of April 2022, around 35% of Germany's natural gas imports, 33 billion cubic meters annually, came from Russia, compared to 16% for crude oil and 8% for coal. Furthermore, German imports of Russian gas are difficult to replace because Germany lacks pipelines connecting it to alternate solution gas wells or services to regasify LNG from ships and transmit it to the current distribution system. This is in contrast to German imports of oil and coal, which are transported by ship. LNG must instead be transported through LNG terminals located in nearby nations like Belgium and the Netherlands. Prices fluctuate globally due to the dependency of gas markets on regional pipelines. In 2022, they ranged from $16.7 per megawatt hour in Louisiana to $110 per megawatt hour. The situation is only expected to get worse as winter sets in and demand for gas increases. With supplies limited and prices high, many people are worried about how they'll make it through the winter. As the European Union's largest economy, Germany is highly dependent on Russian natural gas. In fact, about 1/3 of the country's gas comes from Russia. So when Russia cut off its gas supply to Europe, prices rose about tenfold. This put a huge strain on the German economy and caused many businesses to close their doors. Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, has bombarded Ukraine with powerful weapons while also squeezing Europe by cutting off vital energy supplies. Germany has been exposed more than any other nation. Over the course of more than 10 years, Berlin, seduced by the prospect of a cheap and consistent supply of Russian oil and gas, became more and more reliant upon the Kremlin to power the nation's industry and light and heat German homes. More than half of Germany's natural gas supplies came from Russia by the day Putin invaded Ukraine. Germany paid almost $25 billion to Russia for energy imports in only the previous year. Additionally, inflation in Germany hit a record level of 10.9% in October, according to new data from the country's Federal Statistical Office. The figure is the highest since the data was first collected in 1991 and is more than double the European Union's average inflation rate of 4.1%. The main driver of inflation in Germany is energy prices, which have risen sharply in recent months due to higher oil and gas prices. Other factors include food and housing costs. The situation is only expected to get worse as winter sets in and demand for gas increases. With supplies limited and prices high, many people are worried about how they'll make it through the winter. With the cutting of Russian gas and having almost no storage system, the emergence of winter in European countries is playing the role of icing on the cake. The high inflation rate is likely to cause problems for the German economy, as it will make exports more expensive and it could lead to higher interest rates. It also raises questions about the future of the euro, as higher inflation in Germany could put pressure on other countries to leave the currency union. So, if the situation in Germany is clear and you understand why taking this subsidy is so important, a question arises. Why do other European countries have problems with this subsidy, and how are they getting affected by it? Basic principle of the European Union. As all the European countries work on the basic principle of the European Union, to understand how this subsidy is affecting them, we need to understand how the European Union works. With 28 members, the majority of which are in Europe, the European Union is a political and economic bloc. Through the creation of a uniform set of regulations that are applicable in all member states, the EU has created an internal single market. Passport checks are no longer required within the Schengen zone. A monetary union was established in 1999, coming into full force in 2002, and is composed of 19 EU member states which use the euro currency. The European Union is based on the principles of the free movement of goods, services, people, and capital. This means that there are no barriers to trade or investment between EU countries, and that people are free to move freely within the EU. The EU also has a common currency, the euro, which is used by 19 of its 28 member states. The EU is governed by a set of institutions, including the European Parliament, the European Council, the Council of the European Union, and the European Commission. These institutions work together to make laws and policies that affect all EU countries. The EU is based on the rule of law. This indicates that every decision made by the EU is based on agreements that have been freely and democratically agreed upon by all EU member states. How this subsidy is affecting other European countries. According to calculations by the Financial Times, Germany is providing its economy with an overall level of support that is at least 3 times greater than that provided by the majority of other Eurozone nations in the midst of the energy crisis. Germany is the largest economy in the EU. It's used its clout to push for policies that benefit its own industries. This has led to a situation where other member states are forced to subsidize German companies, which puts them at a competitive disadvantage. This subsidy war is breaking the European Union and it's helping Russia. Because of the scale and power of its economy, Germany can manage to do this since its government can lend money at lower rates than its poorer European peers. Simply put, the generosity of the German shield cannot be matched by other, weaker European states. By the way, before we move on, if you're not subscribed to the BizStudied YouTube channel, go ahead and do so before the end of the year. We're trying to hit our first 50,000 subscribers, so please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss out on our next video. There's the effect the shield is probably going to have on electricity prices, which goes beyond a rich-poor gap. Germany may be disincentivizing conservation by restricting energy prices to prevent its own citizens' homes and companies from paying exorbitant energy bills. If German consumers are aware that a generous assistance mechanism is on the way, why should they forego their own consumption? This increases the likelihood that Germany's 84 million consumers will increase their energy purchases, driving increasing demand across Europe and raising petrol prices for other nations. On the other hand, it makes sense that decision-making in Germany is done for the benefit of the nation's residents. The shield, however, seems to other members of the European Union as a finger in the eye. The European Union, NATO, and the European Commission are all located on the continent. Germany is a member of all 3 organizations and actually dominates them. The treaties are binding and set out the EU's objectives, rules for decision-making, and how it's financed. Other European countries have a problem with Germany's subsidies because they're not in line with the basic principles of the European Union. The European Union is based on the principle of free trade, which means that countries should not be able to give their own companies an unfair advantage over others. Germany's subsidies do just that. They give German companies an advantage over their competitors in other European countries. That's not fair, and it's not in line with the principles of the European Union. The European countries strongly affected by the subsidy. Analysts caution that the race for subsidies among European nations to keep energy prices low for the residents could have disastrous consequences for the continent's weaker economies. The southern European countries are particularly at risk. For instance, Italy already depends heavily on assistance from the European Union to maintain its economy. Additionally, it pays more when borrowing money in the markets since investors take into account the fragility of its financial situation. Due to Germany's hefty subsidies, Italy may be forced to raise support for its own citizens, which could disrupt the fragile economy. The European Union is a unique political and economic entity, and its member states are bound together by a shared commitment to democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. However, the Union is facing significant challenges, and one of the most pressing is the issue of subsidies. Following the German shield, different nations are debating whether they could have to spend more money on such rescue efforts than they're able to. That might then trigger a catastrophe in Europe's weaker economies. Greece was mentioned by Andrews as one of the other vulnerable nations. They've still got very high levels of debt. These dangers, in the opinion of Germany's detractors, highlight the necessity of European unity in the midst of a collective danger. Predictable solutions to ongoing European economic crisis. One suggestion is to cap the price that all of Europe will be compelled to pay for gas supplies. This theory's proponents contend that Europe is a sizable consumer with the power to demand lower costs from suppliers outside of Russia. Thus, the bloc may assure that all citizens are protected against price increases by working together to buy gas. As Russia itself has done, critics claim that major gas suppliers like Qatar may retaliate by simply redirecting supplies to non-European customers. Why sell to Europe at a discount when consumers in Asia and other regions are willing to shell out full price? Germany had previously been one of the most vocal proponents of the latter position, stating that if the price is capped, individuals will just sell their products to Japan instead, for example, according to Gordon of the Carnegie Endowment. In recent days, this opposition has warned that his government is now debating the possibility to prevent price surges throughout the continent by establishing a system to cap expenses, but it's still unclear how precisely that would operate. A softening of Berlin's objection to using joint pan-European borrowing to finance energy subsidies for poorer states has also been attributed to criticism of Germany's shield. The COVID pandemic provided a model for such cooperation when the EU joined up to establish a $700 billion+ recovery fund, supported by cooperative borrowing. The goal was to harness the economic might of the larger European countries like Germany to help finance assistance for lesser developed economies. Again, there are many issues that need to be hammered out on a prospective relief plan for all of Europe. However, analysts claim that due to the pressures brought on by the conflict in Ukraine, something must be given in order for Europe as a whole to be able to endure the dual crisis of inflation and energy, and to make sure that Putin's goal to stir discontent and division among Ukraine's European friends is not realized. But that's all for today, folks. What do you think other than cutting off energy supplies has led to the fall of the European economy? And what exactly is the strategy of Russia for helping Germany? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section, like and subscribe if you enjoyed watching this video, and we'll see you in the next one.